We decided to do one day, but we've really just packed it. I mean, we have so many good people speaking. You know, Paul Packer, Dave Peiffer here leading off. Naomi Schaefer-Riley and Provost Pete Frank is going to be interviewing her up here on stage. And then we got President McNulty with Vice President Pence, of all people. And Carl Truman is going to be with Deborah Goldman and Rabbi Meir Soloveichik, who's just a brilliant Jewish scholar. And then George Weigel will be speaking later in the afternoon. We're going to have him up on the screen. So he couldn't be here in person. He had a prior commitment at Xavier College in Cincinnati. He does an annual lecture there. But he said, but look, I really want to speak on this topic. He wrote a great piece a few months ago on the grave sin of Jew hatred. The piece was titled. And I've known Weigel for years. He's the biographer of John Paul II. I said, please give that talk at our conference. So we're at least going to have him on the screen. And at the end of the day, at dinner, I'll talk about Harry Truman and FDR and the founding of the modern nation of Israel in 1948. And of course, in between, our buddy Michael Medved at lunch. So welcome back. And what one of the attendees asked me earlier, how long in advance do you plan these topics, right, for the conference? And I assure you the answer is longer than like a couple weeks, right? But I mean, it depends. I mean, sometimes we have them about a year ahead. In fact, the same person suggested to me that next year is the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Not a bad topic for next year, right? But in this case, it was precipitated by October 7th, 2023, with the Hamas attack on Israel on that date. And one of the really crazy things about that attack was how on many campuses across the country, students, radicals, leftists responded not by protesting Hamas, right, but by protesting Israel, of all things. And we were talking, Robert Ryder, myself, and Paul McNulty. I said, yeah, that's something you won't see on Grove City College. That's what makes us different. And in fact, one of our attendees asked me if there were going to be protesters out here today. And I said, probably not. I hope not. I probably just jinxed it, right? They'll be there now. But no, I don't think so. I mean, you're not going to see that at Grove City College. It's why we're different. So for the first talk here today, sorry I'm a little bit late and welcome you all. The plan was 8:45, but we had to connect with David Peiffer, who's in Israel, and he was there on October 7th, 2023. And we have here with us Paul Packer, who was also there on October 7th, 2023. So we're going to start off with a discussion. This runs till about 9:40 with Paul and myself and David on the screen. There he is, right behind me. It looks like you have good weather there. It's snowing here.
Well, it's going to be 80 degrees here in about an hour.
Oh, nice. He's 7 hours ahead. 7 hours ahead of us. So, Paul, come on up. All right. And welcome. All right. Okay, so we're going to get started. Is it working? Maybe not. I think I have it on. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right, good. So we'll start off with, we're going to introduce Paul here first. He could tell you about himself and where he comes from, what he does, and then we'll do the same with David, and then we'll go to the issue of where they were on October 7th and what they saw on that date. So Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself, and be sure to tell everybody where you were the last 2 or 3 days. I don't think you mind me calling that out.
Yeah, no problem. I'll give her a little background, and we'll get there very quickly. Really just formerly just a New York kid who grew up Orthodox Jew, went through yeshiva system, went to Yeshiva University, started a career on Wall Street in 1993, and had the amazing opportunity and blessing to be able to serve under President Trump for 4 years, chairing a commission called the United States Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad, which was a commission that was started under President Reagan really to preserve all the old synagogues, but many cemeteries, all in Eastern Europe, everything that was, all history that's trying to be wiped out by the Nazis, and to make sure that every country in Eastern Europe would know that the United States of America would never again would really mean never again. It would never let that either be forgotten. So I had the opportunity to go really around all of Eastern Europe, to go even to moderate Islamic countries that actually had World War II touch upon them, and be able to speak to the leaders of those countries. And it was unbelievable to see the reception that they had to, okay, what would you like us to do? And so much was done, so much is being preserved. And really, yes, they want to do it, but they want to do it, I think, for one reason, not only because, yes, history should not be forgotten and never again means never again, but we also had the strongest president in the United States of America, and they really wanted to make sure that they were on the good side of the United States. Since then, for the last 3+ years, right after the election, I moved down to Florida and have stayed very close to the whole call it family. And I was just telling Paul earlier, I spent yesterday with the president. I spent Sunday at the golf tournament in Florida with the president. And
the president not being Joe Biden.
President Trump, I apologize. I'm not sure if he knows he's the president right now. Joe Biden knows he's the president, but I'm not sure if he knows he's the president. But I was with President Trump, and looking forward to, God willing, in November, during that whole transition, God willing, next January, being back down in D.C.
Excellent, and so I know some people aren't big Pence supporters, so we've got a big Trump supporter right here to balance that out. All right, so all right, good. So we'll come back to you in a minute. David Peiffer, tell us about you and who you are and your connection to Grove City College.
Well, it's a long story, but I'll do my best. Currently, I'm sitting, the wall behind me, if you're curious, that's the wall that holds up my bomb shelter in the back, wow, which will be part of my story in a few minutes. But I thought it fitting to at least get you close to where I was on October 7th. With regard to me, I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, an extremely secular Jew. My great-grandparents left Judaism basically in the 1920s. They felt that there was no redeeming value, at least in the community that they lived in, because it was dangerous to be Jewish. I decided to change that for my life, and my connection with Grove City College was one of a fluke. I was destined to go to West Point, and decided that I was not going to be able to deal with it academically, and my backup school was Grove City, and I chose, of course, Grove City, which I adore even to this day. I graduated in 1981 with a degree in history and political science. From there, I went on to the University of Michigan and received a master's degree in Near Eastern Studies. And from there, I went to Hebrew University, did some postgraduate work. I published my first book called Israel's Strategic Calculus in Judea and Samaria. And that was in 1984. And I reprinted a copy for Grove City in 2006. I since have written 3 other books, most of them about local Cumberland County history, and about 7 other historical articles as well. And business-wise, I decided when I was at the University of Michigan that I was going to open up a business based upon an Israeli Knesset government fiat. And in 1985, the Israeli government passed a law which required all vehicles in Israel to have air conditioning. And so based upon that premise, I started a business in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and picked up and moved in 1987 and made Aliyah to live in Israel. Aliyah basically means to go up. And I went up and began my new life with my adopted country in 1987. Since then, my business has flourished. It was a good move. And although we are adamantly against government fiat and government intrusion in Grove City, it was certainly something that made me a very wealthy person. And I'm sorry to have to say that, but I'm very, very grateful to the Israeli government for giving me an idea for a business. Currently, business-wise, we support the IDF. We build most of the air conditioning or climate systems for the armored vehicles that you can see today on the news, particularly the David, the Hemets, most of the Oshkosh vehicles we do. We did some Hummers, and we do some work with Kinetic Elbit on the Merkava as well. So it keeps me busy. Not so much right now. More people are in the reserves as opposed to working, so it's kind of slow. But I expect at a certain point there's going to be a rush for replacement. That's pretty much what I do, where I came from. I'm a rabid Zionist. I was since about age 15, probably because it was a reaction to the fact that my family wanted nothing to do with that aspect of our roots. And I felt that it was a crime that they'd done that, and I should do something to change that. Well, I did. I moved here in 1987, almost here 40 years. I have 5 children, wonderful wife, and have 5 grandchildren here as well. I have a very full life. I'm very, very happy. And what happened on October 7th was an incredible intrusion into mine and the rest of the other 8 million Jews that live here. Absolute incredible, terrible intrusion.
Well, so we'll go to where Paul was on October 7th, David. Then we'll come back to you. David was editor-in-chief of the Collegian, our student newspaper, when he was here. And one of his children came to Grove City College. He graduated probably about 10 years ago. He was one of our student fellows, and did a lot of the conferences, a lot of the camera work. But all right, so it's great. We'll come back to David in a minute. So, Paul, tell us, where were you the morning that Hamas attacked, October 7th? What were you doing?
Sure. The morning that Hamas attacked Israel, it was a holiday. It was a holiday, like the first days and the last days of the holiday of Sukkot, where Orthodox Jews, religious Jews, you don't have your phone, you don't have anything. You're not.
It's Simchat Torah.
Simchat Torah.
Yeah.
And I'm in Israel, and one of the articles I believe I wrote for the American Spectator. I'm in Israel every holiday. So David, I get there next Tuesday. I'll be there for the holiday. I'll be there for Pesach, and be glad to see you. I see you must be in Jerusalem. If it's Jerusalem Stone, right behind you.
Hopefully, you guys won't be meeting right there.
My bomb shelter doesn't have Jerusalem Stone in it. It's a little different, but the morning of Simchat Torah is. I usually go to pray at the Western Wall and at the sunrise prayer services, and I'm a member of a board of a yeshiva post high school, mostly predominantly Americans who go there. And the yeshiva is really right at the Western Wall. I go there every year, and we go down to the Western Wall to pray. So I was there with my son at the time, and he's a senior in Yeshiva University right now, and all of a sudden, someone came in at about 7 o'clock and said, hey, there was a really bad attack going on in Gaza. Okay, we heard it. No one knew anything about it, but about...
That wouldn't necessarily be anything new, right?
Nothing new. There's always attacks somewhere. Someone gets stabbed somewhere. They come in to tell you. But then all of a sudden, we heard a siren, and... I said, there's got to be an ambulance. And I'm like, no, my son said, that's the air raid siren. And I've been in Israel for a lot of the past wars, and I've heard the sirens before. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, whoa. And the loudspeakers at the Western Wall said, hey, everybody right away into the tunnels, into the protected area. All right, that was once. You never think of Jerusalem because everyone says, hey, Jerusalem's the safest place in the earth, especially in Israel, because they're not going to shoot towards the Temple Mount. They don't want to hit the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Then all of a sudden, it happens again. And people are thinking, okay, what's going on? And no one really knew again what is going on. And we continued dancing with the Torahs, but hey, let's get the service done quickly. After that, I said to my son, okay, let's go. We're going to walk back. We're not going to walk back through the Arab Souk. We'll go through the Jewish quarter, and we'll go out the Jaffa Gate. Let's see if, mommy or, your fiance heard the sirens. Get back to the apartment, and my wife says, what the hell is going on? And once we were walking out of the Jaffa Gate, I know a lot of the Arab taxi drivers there. And I said, guys, what's going on? And they said, Hamas, but did not say what actually had happened, the actual terror, butchery, and we kept on hearing the sirens. I went onto my porch, kept on hearing the sirens, and all of a sudden I started to see the Apaches, 2 by 2, heading south for the next, call it hour and a half, 2 hours. We were going out to eat by Ambassador David Friedman.
A series of Apaches just
coming down, going down south, just going down south.
Whew.
That lunch that afternoon for the holiday lunch, we were going. A dear friend of ours is Ambassador David and Tammy Freeman, the U.S. ambassador to Israel under President Trump. We were going there to eat. So we went and we started walking in the streets to go to his apartment, which is 6-7 minute walk, but there wasn't one person on the street.
Wow.
There was nobody. It was eerie. Nobody on the streets. We saw one other couple from the States, and they said, "Hey, are you going to walk?" And we said, "Well, we are walking. You're not scared?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is what it is. Life's got to go on. We're good." Once I got to the ambassador's house, he said, "Paul, do you see what's going on?" I said, "Well, my phone's been buzzing all morning. Haven't taken a look at it, but," he goes, "My phone's been going off, and it's bad." At the time, Senator Cruz had called him, and he goes, "If we weren't having this meal right now, I'd probably be on a lot of talk shows." But it was eerie, scary. Right after the holiday was over that evening, right to the phones, to cell phones, to see what the hell was really going on. And it's never happened before. I went to yeshiva in Israel for 2 years, post high school, through the first Intifada. I used to go jogging. I used to jog. Ran, had bottles thrown at me, running through the old city, going out of the old city.
Wow.
One of the things I partnered with the mayor, Nir Barkat, in the beginning, about 13, 14 years ago, was a Jerusalem Marathon. He said he wanted to do it. I said, "You want to do it? We'll make it a Wall Street partnership with you guys, public-private partnership." I said, "But there's only one request that I have, and there's going to be one insistence that I have, is that the marathon has to run through East Jerusalem, because it's a united Jerusalem, and it's not only Western Jerusalem, it's a united Jerusalem." And he agreed. And, we had, unfortunately at the time, I think Adidas was the sponsor, and they said, "Hey, take our money, but don't put our name up." And at the banquet the night before, the representative of Adidas was there. The United Arab League had boycotted them. And Nir Barkat said to the representative from Adidas at the time, "Hey, what if this happened in Munich? Would you back down?" He said, our capital is our capital. We don't back down. It's a united capital. This is Israel, and we don't back down to terror or to terrorists. And I think that's just the way it is. I mean, people have said to me, "Are you crazy? You're going to Israel next week? With the threat from Iran?" They might have some bombs. We have God. We haven't been defeated for 3,000 years. We're not going to be defeated. October 7th was a horrible day. It will go down as a day in history that will be marked as the worst day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. But again, we're strong. Israel is strong. They'll come back, and yesterday, I'm sure most of you saw the videos when Ismail Haniyeh found out that Israel wiped out 3 of his kids. And he said, "Thank God they had the opportunity to be martyrs."
Wow.
I mean, Golda Meir had the famous line that there'll be peace will come when the Arabs will love their children as much as they hate us. It's a sad, sad, sad comment. But fortunately, the peace deals that, Abraham Accords that came from President Trump, we see one thing. It's the Western countries who are telling Israel right now to stop. Mm-hmm. Why is it that it's, this is something that's just puzzles me. You have America
saying that from the comfort and safety of the West.
Well, it's the Western countries. I mean, David, I'm sure they're talking about in Israel a lot. I know Yaakov Katz has written about it also, former editor of the Jerusalem Post. You have America, you have Canada, you have France. You have the Western countries telling Israel to stop, ceasefire. Now it's ceasefire without even the hostages. Who knows even if they're alive?
Right.
Why isn't, it's not Jordan, it's not Egypt. It's not Jordan, not Egypt. It's not the UAE. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's nobody in the region. Everyone who wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth isn't saying stop. They know the problem. They know what the evil is, and the evil is Hamas. And unfortunately, what's going on in Washington, who knows what's going on in Washington, who knows what's running through their heads, but it is not good. It's not good for the world, and it's not good for our allies either.
Yeah, and Israel is being made to appear to be the bad guy. And by the way, this is a nation that May 14th, 1948, the people started in a bomb shelter, right? Because they were attacked from all sides right away, 12:01 a.m. That date. Okay, we'll come back. Wow, I don't know so much I could say in response to that. David, tell us where you were that morning and what happened.
Well, as Paul said, that I was supposed to stay over at my mother and father-in-law's house with my children and my wife. But because there weren't enough beds, and there never are when the family wants to go, I decided to walk back home, because we don't drive, and we don't use our cell phones, and we don't use lights and whatever on the Sabbath, and particularly on Simchat Torah, which, by the way, ironically, Simchat Torah, if you translate it, is the joy of the law, the joy of the Torah. So, what an irony that morning to have this done to us. All law is supposed to be decency, it's supposed to be morality. And we ate it that morning. In any event, where was I? I was in bed. And I was rudely awakened by, first of all, sirens, I assume, but it was more like the explosions. And to this day, I can't tell you if it was the Iron Dome knocking something out, or whether it was something exploding on the ground, but nothing like that has ever happened. We've had missiles in Rehoboth before. We've had people die in Rehoboth. We've never had a barrage so sustained and so intense that I jumped out of bed, I turned on my phone, I tried to call my wife, and of course she's not answering the phone. I'm worried where she is. I grabbed my shoes, and by the way, if you live in Israel and you live within the target of the missiles, you generally learn to keep a pair of shoes and clothes right by your bed, at least where we are. We're 45 seconds from my missile from the Gaza Strip. So if you have an alarm in the middle of the night, you've got to be able to run and get your kids out of bed, run, and have clothes or shoes on to get into the shelter. You need your shoes in case there was a direct hit on your house, because you won't be able to get out with all the glass and concrete and everything else that's going to be broken. So there's really a routine that you learn, and we learned it here. Shoes and clothes by the bed. So I immediately grabbed my phone, turned it on, tried to call my wife, grabbed my shoes, grabbed my pants, and ran to the bomb shelter. I sat there stunned because the ground is shaking, the window of the bomb shelter is shaking. Nothing like this ever happened. I didn't have a radio on or even near. So what did I do? I do what every good Grover does. He calls another Grover. I called my son, who lives and works in Raleigh for an Israeli company, and I said, Danny, what's going on in Israel? We're being attacked like we never were. Tell me it's the Iranians, because it certainly feels that way by the intensity, by what it seems to be going on. I said, never has this happened before. And Danny said, okay, look, I'll check and see and whatever. And he said, no, Dad, it's from Gaza. And he says, boy, you better be careful. He says, they're also talking you've been invaded. I said, what are you talking about invaded? I said, nobody's been invaded Israel. He said, they're coming across the fence and coming through the border in white pickup trucks. 10 terrorists in every truck. He says, wherever you are, you better get safe. He says, because it's not good. So that was how it started. I ended up finally getting my wife on the phone, and all of our plans for that morning to go to the synagogue. We have something called Rokefet, and Rokefet is when you take the Torah scrolls and you dance around the synagogue, and the children get candy thrown at them. It's a very, very wonderful, beautiful ceremony. And I remember in the States, the Chabadniks, the ultra-Orthodox, like to eat Trump that day. So it's also a day of partying and joy and whatever, but it's a wonderful family day, particularly for the children. We don't have Halloween here, but when Simchat Torah comes and they start throwing the candy around, the kids are 100% in.
We have Purim, David.
That morning, and the day went by. Eventually, I turned the TV on, and I was watching it live, and you have terrorists pulling up to people's houses and everything else that you saw. And later on, we understood that they were slicing and dicing pregnant women and burning children in their cribs, putting children in microwave ovens, emasculating men in front of their family. Absolutely, you can't imagine what they did to us that day. And you ask how I felt? I sat in the bomb shelter and I got really angry because I didn't do anything. My neighbors didn't do anything to these people. And the reality is, there we are. There are weapons exploding outside. They're obviously trying to kill me. Not just me, but they're trying to kill all of us. And the issue is why? What did we do to them? We wanted them to have what we had. We wanted them to have the land, and that's when Sharon left the Gaza Strip. We thought that they'd want what we want. Family, work, job, food on the table, peace and quiet. But you know what? We were so dead wrong. We believed in this rose-colored whatever, and boy, did we eat it that morning. And I still feel bad inside. Because we lost the war that day. That morning we lost. And it is true what Paul said. We'll come back. But we're really angry, and I think everybody's very, very wounded inside. And everybody feels the same. What did we do to them? We didn't do anything to them. We didn't deserve this. But if you stop and you go back and you read the Hamas covenant, you'll understand why they did it. The Hamas covenant says it all. It's anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic. It uses the language and from the protocols of the elders of Zion. It's an absolutely horrible document. And a guy like a political science professor like Carl Deutsch, who was a professor at MIT and also Harvard, would argue, oh, it's only ideology, over the course of time they'll change and so forth, and in the end it'll be all watered down and maybe they'll believe in 70% of what they write. Well, that wasn't the case with the Hamas and the Covenant. It seemed as if we got full barrel, 100%, everything that was in the Covenant, they did, and more.
So what they did was the people of the Gaza Strip democratically elected a terrorist group to govern them with Hamas. And David, a really important point he's making there too with the Hamas Charter. It's not just anti-Israel, it's not just anti-Zionist, it's not just against the creation of the nation of Israel, but it's anti-Semitic too. Right, and people will try to make differences between those two. And I think this is a good thing to address in the intro panel, because I've had people email me and say, "Look, I think there should be two states there. I think there should be a Palestinian state. I wouldn't call myself a Zionist, but I'm not anti-Semitic. That means you don't like Jewish people just because of their ethnicity. That's not me." How do you guys address that? Paul, go ahead.
I mean, I used to say it to every country that I used to go to, and Secretary of State Pompeo at the time, when he declared anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, I mean, you're going to hate Israel, you're going to hate Jews. I don't care what you say. You're going to, Iran, oh no, we have a Jewish community. Yeah, if you think the people in Iran, the Jewish community in Iran is living freely and isn't scared. There was I'll say it now, it doesn't matter, but there was in Lebanon, it was the 2018 Hanukkah, so end of December 2018, where one of the Jewish cemetery in Beirut, Lebanon, actually collapsed because of the rains. There were horrible rains. I don't know if you remember that, David, at the time in Israel. And I actually was in Israel at the time, and I got a phone call saying, "Hey, this Jewish cemetery collapsed. Is there something the U.S. could do? Does this fall under your privy?" I said, "Hey, we'll figure it out." We got the U.S. ambassador in Beirut on the phone. She said, "Hey, call this person, Jewish community in Beirut, but do not let them know where you're calling from. Call them on something encrypted. They shouldn't know you're calling. Someone somewhere will know that you're calling from Israel. But get it done. But and it got done. But it was, hey, there could be no press about this because we don't want the government here knowing where the money came from, and the U.S. to help rebuild something in Beirut, Jewish cemetery especially. They're not living free. Any of these people in any of these countries. It's what's came, and I know we're going to talk about this later, and David, you're not seeing as much there, but you see it all the time on Nakba Day in Israel, the day of the horrible time when Israel was recreated, the Arabs protest all over in Tel Aviv University and everything within Israel. The creation of, anti-Semitism on the campuses here in the States, what's happened post October 7th. And if you ask me what that really is, I mean, anti-Semitism has been in America since, I would say day one, but it's been there. It just roared its ugly head, and we all see it. It's out there. You know who your enemies are now. It's better to know who your enemies are than to have them come up one day and just stab you in the back or right in the chest. But if you ask me what it really is, it's BLM 2.0. From the river to the sea, you ask these people what river, what sea, they have no idea. In New York City, they're marching every single day from the river to the sea. What river? Hudson River? They have no idea. They don't even know where the sea is. Right. They have, and they're not even Muslim. I mean, you want to look like Yasser Arafat, go dress up somewhere else. But everyone running around in New York or any of these countries, any of these counties, any of these cities, any of these states in America right now, dressing up as Yasser Arafat, wearing a keffiyeh. I mean, come on, give me a break. They don't even know what the keffiyeh represents. They don't even know what the whole idea from the river to the sea represents. It's just rebel rousers being paid $30 an hour or whatever it is to replicate BLM, which happened at the end of the end of the Trump era. And I really believe it's going to end pretty soon. I don't want to say what I think it's going to be replaced with, but it will be replaced with, I believe, BLM 3.0, which is what will carry the protests going into November 5th, the election, most important election, I think, in this country's history. Because the Democrats aren't going to win from the river to the sea. No one's going to care. It's actually backfiring on them all over the place.
By the way, from the river to the sea, that would be the Jordan River. Christians, right? It's where Christ was baptized by John the Baptist, to the Mediterranean, and so that's the eastern and western borders of Israel. So if it doesn't exist from there to there, it doesn't exist at all. So yeah, that's calling for the actual elimination, non-existence of Israel, which in May 1948 was approved of by the United Nations, by the United States. Even the Soviets supported that in 1948. David, go ahead.
I'd like to interject, particularly to your students who may not have a background on the real estate war that has been going on and why they like to say from the river to the sea. I'd like to recommend a book by Joan Peters. It was written a number of years ago. It's called, one second, screw it down here, From Time Immemorial by Joan Peters. And I think it'd be really good reading for them to understand how the real estate was eventually divided up, and perhaps try to understand why the other side has so many problems understanding the reality of what's out there. I mean, we're not only fighting them physically, we're also fighting a factual war with them. Everybody's view, their point of view is completely different than the way we view history. The way we view them is completely different than the way they view us. And these are huge, almost insurmountable things, and I just don't know how we're going to get by. And when they talk about having a Palestinian state, you know what? I have an Arab lawyer. I had Arabs build my home in Rehoboth. I've had electricians. I've had gardeners. There's been never, in my mind, there's never been a problem with working with the Arabs. But you know what? After what happened on October 7th, there is no way that I want to live next to a state that their whole reason to exist, the whole raison d'être is to destroy me and my people and this country. No way, no way. And Washington doesn't get it. Biden doesn't get it.
Well, David, I'll even argue and say that they did have a state, but unfortunately it was underground and it was in the tunnels. They got Gaza. They got Gaza. They could have turned it into whatever they wanted. They could turn it into Singapore. It could have been it's the most beautiful coastal city there before Israel gave it back. I remember when I was in summer camp I was probably 15, and we went to Gaza. We went to the beaches in Gaza. It was beautiful. And you see some of the pictures now. You see the Hummers riding along the beach. They have beautiful, beautiful, beautiful real estate there. I mean, it could be a utopia. But
it could be Hong Kong.
But they turned it into an underground city. They had their state, but unfortunately it was underground. And hopefully that's all blown up now. But they had their chance.
Guys, what about, I don't know how much you want to get into the politics of it. What about the West Bank? I mean, things, I guess, there are at least better than Gaza Strip, right? So the Palestinian state would be West Bank and Gaza Strip.
I don't think, there's David, correct me, but there's close to 600,000 Jews living in the West Bank right now. Okay. And if anybody in this audience ever went to Israel, you wouldn't even know you were going to the West Bank. You just keep on driving. There's no line, there's no anything, but you would know when you would turn into a village, an Arab village off one of the main highways, going through the West Bank, where it would say, hey, if you're an American or carry any other passport besides a PA citizen, your life is in danger once you pass this road, you pass this checkpoint right here. Because there are big red signs all over when you're entering into the Palestinian area of the West Bank. Your life is in your hands, and you're going to have to get rescued either by an ambulance or by the IDF to get you out of there when they're stoning your car or trying to kill you. No matter if you are Jewish or not.
At one point, I don't know what year it was in the early 1990s, but there were 2 Israeli reservist soldiers who got lost on the way to their base, and they ended up in Ramallah, which is in Judea, on the West Bank, as you say, Paul. We have to correct your terminology.
Judea and Samaria.
Okay.
Judea and Samaria.
So these two soldiers were on their way to their base. They got lost, and guess what? They ended up in the hands of a Palestinian crowd who took them to the Ramallah police station and sliced and diced them upstairs on the second floor, and then threw their body parts out the window and put their bloody hands up so everybody could see and cheer down below.
Well, David, those
one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life, other than what I saw on October 7th.
Well, David, it goes even worse. It's even worse. The actors in Hollywood, just about a month ago, when was it the Emmys, the Oscars, whatever the hell they had down there, where they were all, you had a few people wearing a yellow pin for the hostages, but all of them were wearing these red pins on their lapels, which were red hands. Those red hands represented the blood that were the Israeli blood that were on the Palestinians' hands that the Palestinians were showing as a victory sign when they murdered those two Israelis. And that's just says, you want to know about Hollywood nowadays, that's just, they were proud. They were all proud to wear the bloody hands of victory that were on the Palestinians' hands that day.
They just didn't murder them. They cut the livers out, they cut their hearts out, they cut their intestines out, and were spitting and throwing them around from the second floor down to the first floor. That isn't just murder, that is total barbarism.
By the way, this is an advantage you get at Grove City College. You get to learn stuff like this. I mean, are you reading this in the American media, right? They're talking about this at Columbia University, right?
Columbia University, they're wearing the pins.
Yeah, right. And we only have 4 minutes left in this session, which is a shame. Although Naomi Schaefer-Riley is here, and she's great. So, and she could really talk about the campuses, right? She wrote God on the Quad, probably 10, 15 years ago, an amazing book. Guys, I'm looking at the Wall Street Journal this morning, and the headline there is Israeli deaths in Gaza are reshaping a generation. We only have a few minutes, but tell me, what's it like? What effect is this having on people day-to-day working? Men are out fighting, right? Men are out in Gaza fighting a war. What's it like? David?
Yeah, look, it's first of all, my business is slow. I have a commercial side, which is the civilian, and then I have a military government side. Military government side is showing much more promise at this point, but the civilian side, nobody is fixing anything. First of all, there's no workers for the houses. If you want to build a house or you want to do some renovation, there's nobody to do it. Because we used to have, in the apartheid country that we're accused of having, we had lots of Arab workers who used to do that work. Imagine an apartheid state where we let the Arabs be our lawyers and our laborers and our electricians.
And sit on the Supreme Court.
And now they're not here to do that. So first of all, let's
serve in the military.
There are no low-wage employees around because of the way we treat the Arabs. Second of all,
you can't even get them to fix your bomb shelter.
We feel like we had our guts torn out, and that doesn't help. That doesn't help at all. So I won't say that there's a lot of mental health issues here, but I think that a lot of people are depressed and they hurt inside, and it's hard to get beyond that. Israel doesn't lose, and we have lost, and a lot of people have stopped and questioned their faith because of it. Anyway, I want to throw in one more point. I know you're running out of time, and I want your folks to consider one thing. Whenever there's evil around, whenever there's something bad, your silence is complicit to it. So don't sit and be complicit. Don't remain in silence, because the silence is a sin in itself. Never, ever turn your back to evil. Confront it face on and call it what it is. And that's what's happening in our other colleges and universities today. They have no moral foundation. They have no idea what right and wrong is anymore. And so therefore they can't call it out. And therefore they are complicit in this evil that has been pervasive in our world for a very, very long time.
Edmund Burke, all that it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. Paul, I'll let you wrap up.
I mean, I could say I'm over in Israel probably about once a month. We do a lot of investing over in Israel on startup companies, probably for the last close to 20 years, and startup and public companies. But, we hear it all the time. There's some companies, hey, we'd love to, what's going on? We'd love to progress, but unfortunately the CEO or the CFO or the CTO of the other company that we have to do a deal with is actually in Gaza or on reserve duty up north. And people who I know, unfortunately, mental health, it's going to be a problem in Israel. I beg to differ. The next generation, Israel and the Jewish community itself is just either one or two stones removed from everybody. I myself have 3 or 4 friends who have lost children in this war. Everybody knows somebody. This war, this Memorial Day, which is really a Memorial Day, not like in America where there's just 20%, 30% off in a department store. Memorial Day in Israel really is Memorial Day. This coming Memorial Day is one that's really going to punch people in the gut, because they're going to be visiting very, very, very fresh graves where the flowers are probably still, be very fresh also. And it's just sad. It's not going to stop.
How many people have died? Do you guys have any idea of the numbers?
Well, you're talking about soldiers?
Yeah.
Is the Israeli count up to 350, 400, 350 soldiers or something like that? But it's not even the amount of soldiers that have been killed, it's the amount of injured.
Right.
There are people who have lost eyes, limbs.
The civilians and hostages.
It's just, everybody has been touched. You go back, it doesn't matter. Everybody's been touched. You land in Ben Gurion Airport. The minute you land in Ben Gurion Airport, what you are hit with is it has a picture of every single hostage still being held as you're walking towards customs. This is something, doesn't matter right, left, religious, not religious, believer, not believer. The people who were in Gaza were the most left-leaning Jews of Israel. They were anti-Bibi. They would go into Gaza, help the Arabs. How much did that help them? They're either in Gaza now, dead, or their children have been mutilated, raped, or houses burnt down to the ground.
Well, to quote the former liberal Democrat mayor of New York, Jewish Ed Koch, right? In New York, a conservative is a liberal has been mugged, right? Well, I'll wrap up here. Paul wrote a tremendous piece for the American Spectator called "I Was There on October 7." And you can get that. Just type his name. I was there on October 7th, American Spectator. And he wrote here, "No attack can shatter our spirit, dim our faith, or disrupt our rhythms for long." So I think that's the...
And I think I said in there also, I will be back again next year, and I will be back for every holiday going forward. So, they're not stopping me. We can't back down to evil. We can't back down to terrorists.
Well, amen. Our prayers for you. And David, our prayers for you. And so take care, my friend, Grove City alum, class of 81. His son, Dan Peiffer, graduated a few years ago. We have to cut it off. We have to stop. That was amazing. Thank you both. Thanks, Dave. God bless.